Amen. Good morning. We're going to. I want to share a bunch of things today. I think you'll all be very blessed by several things that I'm going to do here this morning. So I ask your indulgence a little bit as I put it together. But I want you to understand something. I really believe that we're likely to see the second return of Jesus Christ to this planet in our lifetime. Certainly, you guys' lifetime. I know people have thought that for a long time, but you look at all the different signs, and at the very least, I'll say we're closer than we ever were. Amen? You can't argue with me on that one. And, if we are, I think that we're a generation that is going to see him move so very powerfully. And he hungers to move mightily through his people here on the earth, to win souls, to bless people, to show people his greatness and his goodness. And we really are a prophetic generation. We have things to speak to our people, things to speak to our nation. And I want to talk about this coronavirus that's going around. And I think our president is correct in calling it the Wuhan virus or the China virus, whichever you want to do. That's not a racist term. We have a history of, we had the Hong Kong flu, we had the Asian flu, we had the bird flu, we had always naming where it came from. That's just how we do it. And it's certainly not a racist thing, especially when China didn't do anything to let the world know that they were having a problem before it spread all over the planet. But I'm going to go out on a limb here today. You've heard me talk about things before. I have more than 20 years into understanding what's really going on in the background with our government. And it's not as honorable as we might have in the past been able to believe really was going on. And there are forces at work that hate our nation and hate God, and are really people who are working to bring about the devil's kingdom here on earth. And if you don't know that, I can show you that today and prove that to you. And if you still aren't convinced, then I can show you some more. But there are some really crazy things going on. And first of all, what happened was, we have a weekly pastors meeting, and some of you have been to it. And it's a time that we get to share things and get to pray. And during it's a powerful thing because it's a regular thing. When I talked to you about fasting, I said, you don't need to go on a 40-day fast. You don't need to go on a 10-day fast. It's good if the Lord calls you to that. But what's more important than that is having a lifestyle of regular fasting. And I explained why that was so important. And it's in those regular movings of obedience to God that you're ready and you're prepared so that he can do things when he wants to do them. He can move when he wants to move. You're a vessel waiting for him. You're a vessel filled with him. You're a vessel prepared for what he's about to do next. And I say that our weekly pastors meetings are very much like that. It's a time that we take a couple of hours and pray and really submit to each other. And so it's really, even though it's a very common thing, it's a very powerful thing, and we can forget that sometimes. And it's in those moments when God knows that everyone is there and they're prepared and they're ready to hear that he can move. He's not waiting for a time that maybe he can touch your heart or say something to you. And the Lord showed me something, and he showed me a lot of people, Christians, are making a mistake when they're talking about a spirit of fear. And the devil wants to put a spirit of fear on the nation. And I really do not believe that is what's going on right now. I believe the spirit of fear is being used, but it's not to put a spirit of fear on people. It's to put a spirit of control on the nation. That's what I really believe is going on. And I'm going to show you some things today that will surprise you. And then it's interesting that this virus is called the coronavirus. Now it's corona-COVID-19, and personally I think there's a little bit better, I'm not sure what COVID stands for, but I know what I think it stands for: Christ over viruses and infectious diseases. Huh? Come on now, we should get that sign put up in front. COVID, that's what COVID means. And anyway, the SARS, the MRSA, the MERS, the H1N1, all of these things are coronaviruses. And it's interesting that this one is simply being known as corona. And what happened was, without boring you with how the Lord revealed it, someone said something at the meeting and it all just clicked. Because corona does not mean king. Corona means crown. crown. And it's interesting that this virus is the crown virus, the crowning virus. And that's the way the devil sees it, as the crown of his efforts. You know, we talk about, I had an uncle who was very wealthy, and at one point he bought a bank, and he used to refer to it as the crown of his empire, you know. And the crown means something, and it is a declaration of authority. You understand that? And it is the ultimate authority because the king wears the crown. That makes sense? And so it's interesting that this virus is called the crown virus, even though it's really, we didn't call it COVID SARS, we called it SARS. I mean, Corona SARS, we called it SARS. We always gave it the other name, but this one is being called crown, Corona. And I think there's so much symbolic stuff going on all the time. We have to just kind of look to see what God is doing. You know, when we had the crusade in Mexico, you know, the last night we really moved to change the atmosphere over that city of Pinatepa. And what was awesome was the next day, for the next couple of days, the atmosphere literally was changed over Pinatepa. It was cool and dry. It's never cool and dry. It's the hottest place on planet Earth, and humid, but it was cool and dry over Pinatepa. And that was just God showing us things, because there's always little signs that he gives that he's working and what he wants to do. So I really believe that what's going on is all about control. Now, I'm going to share something with you that, well, let me go to one more thing. No, I guess I have to share this with you. For the better part of 2 decades, just hang on to this for a second. I've been very involved in bringing this information out nationally. Probably 17 or 18 years ago, I was given a radio show, and at its peak, we had more than 500,000 daily listeners. And we were always exposing what was going on and what was at the root of things and what plans were going on behind the scenes. And I think most of you are aware that there is a global elite that would love to just take over and control us. And not everybody is aware of that, and some people are just kind of bread and circuses, you know, fat, dumb, and happy. You know, the Romans did it, bread and circuses. Give them bread, give them cake, you know, entertain them, and then we can do whatever we want. They're not paying attention. And there's a lot of that going on in the nation today, but there's an awful lot of people who've woken up too. And shows like mine and others and different things that have gone on have really helped to convince people. That's why Donald Trump got elected, because so many people are awake and realizing what's going on. And I can tell you right now that if he had not been president and Mrs. Clinton had, we would be in a world of hurting right now. And he has done more to undo the agenda of the one world people than anybody else. And I could talk for hours, so I just want to make it very concise here. The Rockefeller family is really very involved in that whole one world order thing and trying to bring it about. And again, I could talk for hours, but I want you to understand that it's a very real thing. And the biggest threat that they've ever had is Donald Trump, because he's literally undoing everything that they've done for the last 30 or 40 years. I mean, he's just constantly undoing it. And he's setting the stage so they cannot win back the ground easily that they have been gaining. He's doing that by changing the courts. You know, he's made 197 judicial appointments to the federal court plus 2 Supreme Court justices. That doesn't happen. Why President Obama left 145 vacancies? God, that's the only answer, is God. That's the only answer, because the president doesn't get to do that. And why Mr. Obama left it vacant? Again, has to be God, because President Trump understood exactly what that meant, and he's filling it with very conservative constitutional judges, which will change the course of the country for decades. And so, and assuming a second term, which I know he will have, give him 4 more years of that, maybe he'll be up to 200 plus judges, maybe even get to replace a 3rd person. Ruth Bader Ginsburg won't make it through 4 more years. And will there be another one? Who knows? But you begin to really put the country back in the direction it needs to go in. And so there's a big problem. And I said when he was running, I said the big question I have is how do we keep him alive because after he's elected? Because I know what he's about. And honestly, I'm a little bit surprised that there has not been an assassination attempt, at least. I believe God would likely protect him. But I'm really surprised that there hasn't been, because he's such a threat to them and everything that they're about. Now, one of their big things that they've been trying for the longest time to do to take authority and to get people to give them authority is the whole climate change thing. Now, I'm not going to dispute that climates do change. They've changed for eons. And I don't know if there's a global warming. I mean, 20 years ago it was a global cooling. You know, we're all going to freeze to death and going to enter into a big ice age. Now we're all going to sweat to death and melt and drown as the glaciers melt. And I don't know, but I do know this, that the planet is bigger than men, and I really don't think men are really the cause of it, period. But what's happening is they're losing the battle for control over the climate. And what I really think is happening right now is this president is moving closer and closer to exposing the deep state. And I mean, people all know about that now. People never even knew it existed. Now it's a common knowledge. And I think that what we're seeing right now is a plan by these elites to try to take over the world. To that end, now that I say something like that, I think it will surprise all of you that 10 years ago, I talked about this on our show when we found the Rockefeller's report for how to take over the world in 10 years. And I want to read that to you today, parts of it. And it's a 60-page report, but I've highlighted just a few pages. I'm going to ask Morgan to pass these out. And if you'll all stay with me as I go through this, I think you'll find it rather stunning, because you won't believe the things that I'm about to show you. Every single piece of it is real, legitimate. I spent days trying to put it all together. And the reason that I've printed it all up and given it to all of you is so that you can all share it with people. In 2010, the Rockefeller Foundation partnered with the Global Business Network, and they conducted this, they issued this report. It was a year-long collaboration. And I want to take you guys through it. And if you go to the second page, it says Global Political and Economic Alignment. Now, I want you to understand something. These people are all about globalism. These people are all about a one-world government. These people are all about controlling you and me. Because if we're going to have a one-world government, they will be the governors, we will not. And we will do what they say. And you could almost maybe want to go along with such a thing if they were benevolent people, but they're not. How can I prove they're not benevolent people? Well, there's dozens and dozens of ways, but I'll give you one. I didn't put it in here. Go home, go to Google, and research the Georgia Guidestones. Okay? And if you don't know about them, those are a bunch of monolith-type stones that were put up. Nobody really knows by whom. I think we have some ideas who, but they have all kinds of New World Order things on them. And one of the most telling things is the global population at 500 million people. Not billion, million. In other words, their plan is to eliminate 7.5 billion people because they don't think that the earth can really sustain itself for long with large number of people. So they're going to live like gods on some Mount Olympus someplace, and we'll be their servants, those who are left. I'm not making this stuff up. Go and see it. It's a real place. If you want to drive to Georgia because you don't believe it, you can actually go and see the stone. And that they would actually put that out tells me how confident they have been up to this point of pulling off their goals. Now, they're not going to shoot 7.5 billion people. They're not going to do that. They'll never get away with that. So how do they eliminate 7.5 billion people? I've always said it has something to do with not a virus, but a vaccine. To get people to take a virus, to get people to take the vaccine. I will not take any vaccines. A few years ago, whatever thing was going around, there was all of a sudden great talk in Massachusetts and another place. We are going to forcibly inoculate the population. Now, I've always talked about this great sleeping giant in our country called We the People. And it is a great sleeping giant. And it's always like this, you know? Super Bowl. Who's left on the island? Get me another beer. Yes, let's get some tacos. What did you say? Forcibly inoculate us? No, we were just kidding. That's exactly what happened. Everybody went, what did you say? And they went, oh, no, never mind. Go right back to sleep. But what are they doing now? Now they're testing another way. Do you realize, and I'm going to show you why I really don't believe this is anything, this whole corona scam, it's a planned-demic, is what I'm calling it, not a pandemic, a planned-demic. And I'll show you in a little bit why I don't believe it's anything. But with just the threat of this, and you'll see how minor it is in a few minutes. They have literally shut the planet down. Country after country after country, people are staying indoors, and everything has stopped. They are dancing the Irish jig at their accomplishment right now. But this isn't the end game, and you're going to see more here. So let's go to the page where it says Global Political and Economic Alignment. And if you go down about 6 or 7 lines, it says, on one end of the axis, we would see a more integrated global economy. An integrated global economy. That means a controlled one world economy. Go down about 3 or 4 more lines. In the middle it says, and the increasing specialization of exports, we would also see more cooperation at the supranational level. In other words, we will make great big nations called Europe, another one called the Americas, another one called Africa, and we will decide what will be produced where. Kitchens will be made in Europe, bathrooms will be made in the United States, South America will make living rooms, we'll do all the farming in Africa, and we'll ship it around. That's kind of that's what they're talking about. So I want you to turn the page over to the next page. And they have 4 scenarios. 4 very different futures. And you know what I should have done? I think I didn't do it, and I wanted to do this. This report is entitled The Scenarios for the Future of Technology and International Development. That's on the very first page. This was prepared in May 2010. The information is on the back side of page 1. And so I want you to look at lockstep, because that's the one they're gearing toward. A world of tighter top-down government control and more authoritarian leadership, it should say leadership, with limited innovation and growing citizen pushback. So they recognize, first of all, that what their goal is a tighter control by government, and they will tell everybody what they do and how they do it, and they are respecting the fact, expecting that there's going to be some pushback when they do that. The other scenarios are where they don't want to go. This is where they're trying to take us. Go to the next page. And again, you can, by the way, you can actually probably find these documents online. I've given you the high points. These are like 60, 70 page documents. I have the whole document. If anybody wants to, I could email it to you. So let's look at the lockstep scenario under scenario narratives on this page right here where it says scenario narratives. You're one ahead of us, Dr. Wilson. Go back one. Scenario narratives, this page right here. And I want to highlight some things because it's going to stun you. This was written 10 years ago. I talked about it on our show 10 years ago. People said, you're crazy, they'd never even do such a thing. People said, no, you're making it up. They didn't do this. I finally produced the document. So they did say it, but they'll never do it. They're just talking about things that might happen. No, they're talking about a plan they have. So go down about 6 or 7 lines. It starts, the line on the left says, viruses streaked around the world, infecting nearly 20% of the global population and killing 8 million in just 7 months. This is a scenario they're putting out. They're putting out a scenario of what they want to see happen. What they're disguising it as is what might happen, what could happen, but it is what their plan is. This is their plan. Killing 8 million people in just 7 months, the majority of them healthy young adults. The pandemic, I call it plandemic, also has a deadly effect on economics. International mobility of both people and goods screeched to a halt, debilitating industries like tourism and breaking global supply chains. Yep, toilet paper, there you go. This is their plan. This was their plan 10 years ago. You're watching their plan play out exactly as they have planned it. Skip a line, the end of the next line. Even locally, normally bustling shops and office buildings sat empty for months. Go to the next column on the right, almost straight across. The Chinese government's quick imposition and enforcement of mandatory quarantine for all citizens, sealing off all borders. Sound familiar? This is their playbook. Turn the page. What we are witnessing now is no accident. Go down about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 lines. It says restrictions on the left-hand side. I'm going to start in the middle. Mandatory wearing of face masks. Body temperature checks at entry points. Communal spaces, rail stations, supermarkets. Even after the pandemic, watch this. This is their plan. This is why I'm going to tell you why we're doing what we're doing. Even after the pandemic faded, the more authoritarian control and oversight of citizens and their activities stuck and even intensified. Every Christian church who says, well, we're going to close out of respect to the government, shame on you pastors, you are setting your sheeple up to be slaughtered. Shame on every one of you. You should be standing strong and you should be saying, we will not play this game. Why will we not play this game? Because we see that it is a game. We see the plan you've had for a long time. Oh, but Pastor Massad, you're crazy. This is real. It is not real. You're saying there's not a pandemic? I'm saying it's a plandemic. And I'm going to get into a little while, in a few minutes, why I think it is absolutely nothing to fear whatsoever, period. Go down a little bit more, the next paragraph at the end. Leaders around the world took a firmer grip on power. This is their plan. At first, the notion of more controlled world gained wide acceptance and approval. Citizens willingly gave up some of their sovereignty and even their privacy in exchange for greater safety and stability. Ben Franklin said it best. People who would give up their liberty for security deserve neither. And that's the truth. Go down almost to the bottom. This heightened oversight took many forms. Biometric IDs for all citizens, for example. What their intention is now is to get everybody to willingly take the vaccine. I'm going to tell you right now, there are 2 things you should never do. Never take the vaccine and never get on the cattle cars. It is not for your own good. Okay? It is not for your own good. The cattle cars, like the Jews did on their way to the concentration camps. That's for your own good. It'll all be fine. Just get on the cars. It's all going to be good. No. No, you need not to get on the cattle cars. You need not to take the vaccines where they put the live viruses in you. You need not to do that. A vaccine is very different than an antibody. Very, very different thing. Very different thing. What they'll do with this is they will play out, we now have a vaccine. And everybody has to get the vaccine because we don't want to see this plandemic happen again. And if you don't do it, then you cannot travel. That'll be the next thing that they play. And so long as everybody says, well, it's for our own good, and we just, it's our government, they're just trying to help us, it's okay, we'll go along to get along. Well, that didn't work out very well for the Jews, did it? And it won't work out well for us either. And I'm telling you right now, when I've been talking about this and telling people this is not what you think it is, people are like, no, you're crazy, it's a real thing. No, it's not a real thing. It's a real thing that was planned 10 years ago to play out here today for all of us who wouldn't know and remember what they played out 10 years ago. This is the exact scenario. This is their playbook you're holding in your hands. But it gets even worse. Wait till you see where it's going. On the other paragraph, on the other column, the last paragraph on the right, there were other downsides. This is them talking about the downsides they saw as they began to control the population. The rise of virulent nationalism created new hazards. In other words, anybody who didn't bow to our globalist one world order and said, no, we're Americans, we're not playing this, that creates hazards for us. I got news for you. It is my intention to create every hazard for them that I can. I am not cooperating with them. I'm driving, I'm going places, period. End discussion. You'll see why in a couple minutes here. Now, the next page here, I want you to understand something. This was what happened in 2010. But this, on this page here, this is from their 2009 report a year earlier. And I just want you to catch a couple of, again, these are like 60, 70 page reports. I have them. I can email them to you if you really want them. But these are the high points. This is the foresight for smart globalization. This is how we plan to globalize the world. And as Jody just pointed out, go to the top left, the blue box. This is the Institute for Alternative Futures. I'm sorry, Mr. Rockefeller. I'm sorry, Rothschild family. I don't want your alternative future for the world. The Rockefeller Foundation. In the green, the Rockefeller Foundation, Bellagio Center, Bellagio, Italy. where yesterday they had 800 people die, the largest number of people that have died so far in one day from the pandemic. Go to the next page, and again, just a little point I just want to make to you here. China's very much a part of all this here. I did not get into it at length, I don't think, but this all happened in Wuhan, China, which is the site of their bioweapons lab. It is no coincidence whatsoever. It is planned. It was released. That's it. Period. Figure 2, foresight. This is the foresight linkage. And without going into everything, I want to just point out two things. There's sort of a cross in the middle there on the left. And at the top, it's the decision makers. And at the bottom, it's the decision users. Guess which category they probably see all of us in? That's right, the decision users. Their plan is that they will rule the world, and you will use the decisions that they make. Turn the page, and I want to share a prophecy that Chuck Pierce had a year ago. And some of you have probably heard about it, some of you have not. I'm not a big fan of prophets, and Chuck Pierce isn't my favorite prophet. But he does hit it pretty regularly and comes up with some good ones. Chuck Pierce prophesied at the beginning of the Hebraic year 5780, otherwise known as last September, that we would face a massive plague-like invasion that would test us until Passover, and that nations would come into turmoil until that time. Well, Passover this year is April 8th, so let's intensify our prayers and decrees that we can see this virus die off over the next several weeks rather than escalate. Passover is the time when people of God were protected by the blood of the Lamb in the midst of the peril that they faced. Remember, life and death is in the power of our mouth. We have to speak life. Our prayers are powerful. Our prayers are intensified when we fast. The authority is greater. It's powerful stuff. I want to look at this chart on the right-hand side. Now, there's a lot of garbage coming out on the media, and the garbage is all tied up in the word fear. You know, are you afraid? We're going to make you more afraid every day. And what they do is they take statistics and blow them up crazy out of proportion. So this is from Yale University. So I went to Yale University, obviously to the website, and I said, let's get some impartial, unbiased, real, factual answers. And the coronavirus on the top right, in fact, one person can infect a little over 2 people. Down on the left-hand side, down one, the H1N1, one person can, and that's the swine flu, one person can infect 1.5 people roughly. 1.5 persons, 1/3 persons roughly. Ebola, I don't even want to talk about it, that you have to be in contact with, we'll skip that. SARS, one person can affect 2 to 4 people. MERS, Middle East Respiratory Syndrome, incredibly infectious. One person can infect 7.2 people. During the height of MERS, in the United States alone, we had 670,000 people who had MERS. 12 or 13,000, I think it was 13,000 people died of it. Okay, we did not shut down the nation. Worldwide, as of today, less than 13,000 people have died out of 8 billion people. This is not anywhere near as severe as that was. And we did not shut down the world. Shut down the world because of it. We did not do that. There is absolutely zero reason for any panic, any second thought about this, it is similar to any other flu, period. I'm not saying you don't have to pay attention. I'm not saying you shouldn't wash your hands, but as someone said, you should have been washing your hands anyway. Why do you have to be told to wash your hands now? You should have been washing your hands all along. So now let's go a step further, because what I'm about to reveal to you is going to absolutely shock you. And I'll be honest with you, I've told it to some people. They didn't believe me, so I was up till 5 this morning digging out all the facts, okay? What we need to do, really, I mean, you get all these precautions everyone wants you to take. What you really need to do is you need to insulate your head, right? You insulate your head and stop listening to this garbage. And put up your shield of faith. When they start saying all this stuff, say, no. I choose to trust in the Lord. Put up your shield of faith. What you're seeing right now is how the deep state is fighting back. That's what's going on right now. They don't dare assassinate the president. They really don't, because if they wanted to, they could. I mean, they could try anyway. But there are 2 words, my 2 favorite words in the Bible. But God. But God. But God. They can do everything they want, but God. You know, they tried to impeach this president. Look, it all turned around. It all fell flat. He's smelling like a rose. Came out perfect. Okay? So now I just really believe that God is in all this, and he's really here to protect us. But It's not by coincidence, it's not by chance. It's because his people who are called by his name have humbled themselves and prayed, and our battle's not done yet, and that's where we're going to win this battle. But in the meantime, we need not to capitulate to surrendering, because when you surrender, you don't get those rights back. That's why they'll continue to try, well, we want to continue it a little further. That act decimated the Bill of Rights and decimated the Constitution. And it is an attack on every freedom that we have. If a foreign enemy had shown up at our shores saying, oh, no, we don't have any guns, we just want to put this in your law, we would have all grabbed our BB guns and pistols and gone to the shore and put bullets in all of their heads, because no, you will not take over our nation that way. And then as the furor from that quickly grew, excuse me, George Bush, who I don't believe for a second was innocent in any of this, came out and said, no, it's a temporary thing. We need these measures for terrorists. It's just for terrorists. Immediately, it sunsets in 5 years. Well, that 5 years, every 5 years since then has been renewed and strengthened. And it's not just for terrorists. I had a guy on my radio show. He was having a big fight with, I want to say it was Minnesota, I believe, and the people in that town, whatever his battle was with them over taxes or whatever, he had a beautiful piece of land, and the town was trying to steal it from him, and they did. And so he understood the law, and so he was filing liens against the judges for doing things, and liens against the town, and getting him in all kinds of trouble, doing all kinds of stuff. They called him a paper terrorist, and went after him under the Patriot Act, which stripped away all of his rights. They were able to arrest him and not tell anybody where they'd taken him. They were able to have a private trial and put him away. Right? Oh, it's only for terrorists, but you're a terrorist, and you're a terrorist, because you believe in the second coming, and you believe in homeschooling. You're terrorists. It's all in there. It's all in there. It's all in there. It's all in that Patriot Act. So when I see any time that they say, well, it's just for a little bit, it is never just for a little bit. When they get a power, they keep it, they never let it go, and they always abuse it. Every single time, without fail. Without fail. Which is why I will continue to stand strong against what they're doing now. So now let's go to this next thing, which is called Event 201. Now, Event 201 is, I want to look at the event for a second. It says about the event. And Event 201, well, before I do that, I want to go to the bottom of the page. I want you to see this was a collaboration of 3 organizations. The World Economic Forum, Johns Hopkins University, and the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. And the whole purpose of this event is about global economic growth. That's what they get together for. Event 201 is all about global economic growth. Well, let's look what happened here. Event 201 was a 3.5-hour pandemic tabletop exercise that simulated a series of dramatic scenario-based facilitated discussions, blah, 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 jump down 2 lines. 15 global business, government, and public health leaders were players on the simulation exercise that highlighted the unresolved real-world policy. Next paragraph down. The exercise consisted of pre-recorded news broadcasts and live briefings. The last thing, it was held by Johns Hopkins World Economic Forum, Bill and Melinda Gates, October 18th, 2019. And what did they imagine as an imaginary pandemic? Oh, a coronavirus. They played out in October, last October, they played out a coronavirus scenario that would just happen maybe, it could never happen, but we'll just say if it did. These are the people who are getting together to talk about world economic freedom and economic growth. Why are they playing out a pandemic of a coronavirus? Well, turn the page. This was a report on it. I put the web link at the bottom to where this report came from. In October 2019, a group of 15 business people, government officials, and health experts gathered around a table in New York to plan out the global response to a worldwide outbreak of never seen before and completely fictional coronavirus. Oh, what do you know? What a lucky break. And all of a sudden it all happened. Go to the third paragraph. 3.5 hours later, the group finished the simulation exercise, and despite their best efforts, they couldn't prevent the hypothetical coronavirus from killing 65 million people. So their game plan was to role play this 65 million deaths worldwide for the coronavirus. Now this gets even more sinister because you can already see how sinister it is. You have no idea where this is about to go. You can already see how sinister this is because this is you're holding the playbook that they're playing this all out with. So now I'm going to take you to the morbidity and mortality weekly reports. I've had the opportunity years ago to go to the Centers for Disease Control. There was a particular thing that was happening. I wanted to get more information. I went and met with the doctors who were doing the study. Really an amazing organization. And whether they're good or bad, I'm not really sure, but they're the ones we have to turn to. And this right here, it says, update influenza activity in the United States during the 2018-2019 season. And this is a report that's published weekly. It's called the Morbidity and Mortality Weekly Report by the Centers for Disease Control. I just want you to look at the summary at the bottom. I took a quick summary and superimposed it here. The CDC estimates, last year, a year ago, that between 37.4 million and 42.9 million people contracted the flu during the 2018-2019 season. Those cases led to between 531 and 647,000 hospitalizations and 36 to 61,000 deaths. So last year, they believe that up to about 61,000 people died of the flu. We have had just over 200 people in this country. That's just in the United States. Just in the U.S. We've had 200 people who have died from this thing. Please do, and it has a better than 98% survival rate. Please do not tell me that there is any reason for any panic and to shut the nation down. Now I want to turn the page over to the next one. Look at this next page. The interim estimates for this flu season, 2019 to 2020. And this particular part of the morbidity and mortality report talks about the effectiveness of the vaccines. So blah, 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 go down to the summary, and the very last line says, it's in bold, it says, what are the implications for public health practice? Well, if you look above public health practice, it says laboratory confirmed influenza virus infection was 45%. So the vaccine protected 45% of the people. That's it. That's it. 45% of the people. So this amazing vaccine that they're all promoting all the time that everyone should get only protects 45% of the people. So now I come to the most nefarious part of the whole thing that we're doing here. And this is troubling beyond troubling. This is from the European Patent Office. Now, you're not going to believe what I'm about to show you. But if you look up here, it's the European Patent Office, and this is, the date of the patent is November 20th, 2019. That's when it was finally approved. It was applied for in 2015. And if you look on the, in fact, if you look down another line, it says 2 lines. It says date of filing was July 23rd, 2015. Now, if you go down, it says the next line, what is the patent for? It's for a thing called coronavirus. They were patenting the structure, the molecular structure, the cellular structure, the DNA of coronavirus? Yes, they were. So let's go down a little bit more. You have 54 on the left, 30, 43, and then 173. Who is the proprietor? Who's the person who this is for? It's the Pirbright Institute out of Surrey, England. They are the ones who have the patent on the coronavirus, who will have the patent on all of the vaccines that come from the coronavirus. Now, if you want to know who the Pirbright Foundation Institute is, turn the page. Because the Pirbright Foundation Institute is owned by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. And there it is. You can go to their website. I went to their website last night and took this information off of it. They own this. Bill Gates did a TED Talk last year, the year before. If you don't know what TED is, go to YouTube. TED Talks they're very, very educated, short 15, 17-minute talks from very learned people, and they're usually fantastic. And he did one about, he said, the next thing we have to fear in this world isn't a nuclear war. Nope, it's a virus. Yep, that's what's going to get us, a virus, because we're not ready. Virus. He's out there promoting that. And he has the patent on the coronavirus. I know it's all just a coincidence, and that we really should bow our knees and lick the boots of our would-be captors, and we should do everything they tell us because it's for our own good. But I have a message for all of them. I'm not playing your game. This is nowhere near what other viruses are. And we have shut the nation down, we've shut the planet down because we're led around as sheeple and we've not looked to see what's going on. This has nothing to do with protecting you. This has everything to do with control. And if we want to pray and fast, I think we need to pray and fast against that spirit of control, because that's what's coming in. It's trying to crown itself over us. It's trying to corona itself over all of us. Amen?